At just 11 months old, Brooke Shields stepped into the spotlight as a baby model, and by the age of 12, she was already one of the most talked about faces in Hollywood. Her breakout role in Pretty Baby shocked audiences, sparking controversy about the exploitation of a child in ways no one should have endured. While the world saw glamour, Brooke faced the heartbreaking reality of being thrust into adult roles far too early, her innocence overshadowed by industry demands. Directors and photographers dictated her image, leaving her little say over her career or her childhood. Growing up under the weight of public scrutiny was less about stardom and more about survival. Instead of school dances and teenage freedom, she was paraded across red carpets and talk shows, expected to project maturity she hadn't yet reached. Behind her smile was a child yearning for normalcy. The tragedy of Brooke's early fame wasn't just the pressure. It was the way her youth was stolen before it had the chance to flourish. Even decades later, she reflects on those early years as a complicated mix of opportunity and trauma. Terry Shields, Brooke's mother and manager, controlled every aspect of her daughter's early career, making decisions that shaped Brooke's public image but also fueled controversy. While Terry fought fiercely to protect her, she also pushed Brooke into roles that many critics argued were damaging. From Blue Lagoon to provocative modeling shoots, the young actress found herself the subject of debates about morality, childhood, and exploitation. Brooke herself has admitted she had little say in what happened, often feeling like she was living someone else's vision. Fame came at a cost. Her sense of self was constantly tested. The tragedy here was not just about Hollywood's appetite for shock but about the bond between mother and daughter, one entangled in business and control. Brooke later confessed she longed for a nurturing mother-daughter relationship free of contracts and negotiations. Instead, her adolescence was filled with rehearsed answers, photo shoots, and a constant fear of public judgment. By the time she reached adulthood, she carried both fame and scars that shaped her journey forever. As Brooke transitioned from child star to adult actress, she faced the nearly impossible challenge of reshaping her identity in Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. Typecast as the beautiful face, directors often underestimated her true range, reducing her to looks rather than talent. She was both admired and criticized, praised for her beauty but dismissed when she tried to prove herself as a serious performer. This constant struggle to be taken seriously left her doubting her place in the industry. Many didn't realize how hard she worked behind the scenes, earning a degree from Princeton University in French literature, determined to prove she was MO. Brooke's personal life became just as scrutinized as her career, and her relationships often played out under a relentless spotlight. Her brief marriage to tennis legend Andre Agassi in the 1990s was one of the most publicized unions of the decade. What looked like a fairy tale from the outside quickly unraveled into a painful separation filled with resentment and emotional strain. Brooke later revealed how toxic the relationship had become, admitting that she lost herself in the marriage. The divorce was not only heartbreaking but humiliating, as the press dissected every detail of their private life. Years later, she found stability with television writer Chris Henchy, with whom she built a family, but the scars from public heartbreak never fully disappeared. Every failed relationship in her past became tabloid fodder, reminding her how difficult it was to separate her personal happiness from the world's expectations. The tragedy wasn't only in the breakup. It was in the exposure, the loss of privacy, and the constant battle to protect her sense of self. In the early 2000s, Brooke shocked fans when she courageously opened up about her struggle with postpartum depression after the birth of her first daughter. While many expected her to bask in maternal bliss, she instead found herself drowning in despair, unable to connect with her baby in the way she thought she should. In her memoir, she detailed the terrifying thoughts and overwhelming sadness she endured, breaking barriers in a time when postpartum depression was rarely discussed publicly. The tragedy lay not only in her suffering but in the cruel criticism she faced. When actor Tom Cruise publicly attacked her for using medication, the backlash amplified her pain. Instead of support, she was forced to defend her right to heal. Yet Brooke's bravery in speaking out changed the conversation, helping countless women find the courage to seek help. Still, the the experience marked one of the darkest chapters of her life, a reminder that fame offered no protection from silent battles. Though Brooke found success in various television roles and stage performances, she often faced the harsh reality of Hollywood's fickleness. For every standing ovation she received in Broadway productions like Cabaret and Chicago, there were also roles that critics dismissed or ignored. The constant fluctuations between praise and rejection wore heavily on her spirit. Hollywood's obsession with youth meant that as she aged, offers slowed down, no matter how talented or versatile she proved to be. She reinvented herself time and time again, moving from film to theater to television to stay relevant in an ever-changing industry. Yet the tragedy of Brooke's career wasn't a lack of work, it was the relentless cycle of being underestimated, proving herself, and then having to start over again. Despite her perseverance, she could never fully escape the shadows of her childhood fame. Her journey became less about chasing stardom and more about surviving in an industry that often seemed determined to forget her. For much of her life, Brooke was seen as the embodiment of beauty, but that admiration often came with objectification and exploitation. From her Calvin Klein jeans campaign at 15 to countless magazine spreads, she became an icon, yet her image was used in ways she couldn't always control. Critics accused the campaigns of being overly provocative, sparking moral outrage, while others profited from the attention. Brooke, meanwhile, bore the emotional cost of being constantly reduced to her appearance. She once admitted that she struggled to separate her self-worth from her looks, a burden that lingered well into adulthood. While the world admired her, she felt trapped by expectations, forever defined by an image she never chose. The tragedy was not just in how the media exploited her youth but in how it shaped her sense of identity. Even at 60, she acknowledges that reclaiming her narrative remains an ongoing battle. Motherhood became both Brooke's greatest blessing and her greatest challenge. With her husband Chris Henchy, she welcomed 2 daughters, Rowan and Greer, and dedicated herself to creating the stable home life she never had as a child. Determined to protect them from the exploitation she endured, she prioritized privacy, shielding them from the harsh glare of Hollywood. Yet, as her daughters grew older, she faced new challenges, balancing her protective instincts with their desire for independence. Despite the joys of raising a family, the shadows of her own childhood often resurfaced, reminding her of the pain she hoped her daughters would never know. The tragedy of Brooke's journey as a mother is not in her love, it is in the haunting memories of what she endured, which she constantly fights against repeating. Her motherhood is both healing and heavy, a reminder that some scars linger long after the cameras stop rolling. In 2021, Brooke suffered a devastating leg injury after falling off a balance board during exercise, leaving her with multiple surgeries and a painful road to recovery. What seemed like a simple accident quickly spiraled into a near-death experience when she developed a serious staph infection during her hospital stay. At one point, she revealed that doctors warned her she might lose her leg. For someone who had spent her life in front of cameras, admired for her strength and grace, the possibility of such a loss was terrifying. Yet even in recovery, Brooke showed remarkable resilience, sharing her journey publicly to inspire others facing medical challenges. Still, the physical pain and emotional strain took a heavy toll. The tragedy of her accident wasn't only in the injury but in the way it reminded her, and her fans, of how fragile life can be. At 60, her body bears the marks of battles fought both privately and publicly. Brooke has been vocal about the way Hollywood treats women, particularly as they age. While men are often celebrated for growing older with distinguished charm, women face diminishing opportunities and constant scrutiny over their appearance. Brooke, who spent decades as a beauty icon, has spoken candidly about the pressure to remain youthful in an industry obsessed with perfection. Despite her accomplishments, she often found herself judged not for her talent but for how well she conformed to unrealistic standards. The tragedy here lies in the systemic bias that continues to plague Hollywood, where Brooke and countless other actresses fight to remain visible. By speaking out, she has become an advocate for change, but the battle remains uphill. Her honesty about aging, beauty, and resilience has inspired many, yet it also highlights the painful truth that even legends like her are not immune to the industry's cruelty. In recent years, Brooke has transformed her pain into advocacy, using her platform to speak about mental health, body image, and women's rights. From writing books to giving heartfelt interviews, she has shed light on topics once considered taboo. She has become a role model not just for survivors of exploitation but for anyone struggling to find strength in the face of adversity. Yet even as she empowers others, the weight of her past tragedies remains part of her story. Brooke's resilience doesn't erase her pain, it redefines it, turning suffering into purpose. She continues to balance vulnerability with strength, showing that healing is an ongoing process, not a destination. Her legacy is no longer just about beauty or fame, it is about survival, truth, and the courage to speak when silence was easier. At 60, she stands not just as an actress but as a voice for those who cannot yet tell their stories. Now at 60, Brooke Shields reflects on a life filled with both triumph and tragedy. Her story is not defined by a single heartbreak but by a series of struggles: exploitation as a child, strained family ties, public heartbreak, silent battles with depression, and near-death experiences. Each chapter of her life reveals a woman who has endured more than most could imagine, yet continues to rise. The tragedy of Brooke Shields lies in the innocence lost, the scars endured, and the relentless fight for respect in an industry that too often sought to diminish her. But her story is also one of remarkable strength. She has shown the world that even in the face of exploitation, heartbreak, and physical pain, resilience is possible. Brooke's journey is both heartbreaking and inspiring, a testament to the power of perseverance. As she moves forward, her legacy is clear, not just as a star, but as a survivor whose voice will echo far beyond Hollywood.